So welcome to today's Sutta class. Today we're going to be learning a beautiful Sutta, which is very practical to our life, which is very close to our life, something that we all can relate in our life. Okay. I chose this Sutta because I thought it will be very useful to many people. Because many people face this problem in life, and unless we find a solution to this problem through the Dhamma, there is no other way to abandon this problem and become free from this. So you must be wondering, what in the world is this, right? So this sutta is actually found in the Anguttara Nikaya of the Pali Canon. And the name of this sutta is Aghatavattu Sutta. Okay, Aghatavattu Sutta. And the sutta next to that is Aghatavattu Vinaya. So the Supreme Buddha first teaches us the problem, and then next the Supreme Buddha teaches us the solution to it. Okay. So in English, the name of the sutta is translated as resentment. Okay. So our great teacher, the Supreme Buddha, teaches because there are these 9 grounds for resentment. How many grounds are there for resentment? So this is found actually in the Anguttara Nikaya, the Book of the 9. A very similar sutta to this is also found in the Anguttara Nikaya, Book of 10. And in that sutta, there's one additional point to what's taught in this sutta. Okay. So the Supreme Buddha explains, because there are these 9 grounds for resentment. So how many grounds are there for resentment? 9.
9.
Yes, 9. Okay. So if we get angry, if we feel resentful, if we feel ill will towards another person, then it's based on either of these 9 situations. Okay, so when you're listening to this, to make sure that you relate this to yourself and try to investigate this through your own life. Okay, not to don't point the finger at others, or this is for you, right? This Dhamma is for yourself. Okay, if a person practices this Dhamma, then the results can be yielded in this very life, here and now, because it's Supreme Buddha's Dhamma is Sanditthiko. Okay, so the Supreme Buddha says there are these 9 grounds for resentment. And what are these 9? The first reason that you may harbor resentfulness against someone is thinking, he acted for my harm. So if you think that he harmed me, what happens is a resentful feeling arises in your mind. So now think back. So you may not be resentful at this very moment, but you may have been resentful maybe a few hours ago today, or maybe a few days ago today, or maybe a few weeks ago today. So if you compare, if you investigate and try to find out, you realize that the reason that you got angry is either of these reasons. Okay, so the Supreme Buddha explains, if a person thinks he acted for my harm, then that leads to resentment. Okay, that's the first one. The second one is, Supreme Buddha explains, so he acted for my harm, meaning it's in the past. So someone did something damaging to you, to your life, right? It could be he harmed your reputation. It could be he or she harmed your wealth, your financial situation, or anything. Okay, so in the past, if someone hurt you, or harmed you in any way, you harbor that thought and you feel resentful. Okay, that's the first ground. And then Surabhi explains, thinking he's acting for my harm, one harbors resentment. So at this very moment, in the present life, if someone is acting for your harm, if he's hurting you, if he's trying to harm you, the Supreme Buddha explains that harbors resentfulness in a person. Okay, like for example, suppose you're a very practical example that you can take is, now suppose you're trying to meditate, okay, and someone at home is talking really loudly or has put on the radio or the TV very loudly. So what happens? So you think, oh, she's not letting me meditate. You think he or she is harming you, is damaging what you are trying to do. So what happens is that leads to resentfulness. So the Buddha says, thinking that person is harming me leads to resentfulness. So this is the reason that most of us get angry in our lives. Okay. And the third is thinking that he will act for my harm, one harbors resentment. So thinking in the future, in the future also, this person is going to harm me. In the future also, he's going to act for my harm. So you're thinking it in your head. He has not done anything to you, but in your mind, you're thinking that no, he's going to act for my harm in the future. And for example, suppose there's someone who's always disagreeing with who always disagreed with you in the past, right? So when it comes to associating with such a person, the feeling that you get is that this person is also going to act the same way in the future. So therefore, you have that resentful thought towards that person. So maybe that he has developed his mind and he has let go of all the grudges and he's going on his own path. But in your mind, you harbor those resentful thoughts and you think that no, in the future also he's going to act for my harm. So thinking that makes you feel resentful towards that person. Okay, so we talked about 3 points. Thinking that a person harmed me harbors resentfulness. Thinking that person is harming me now harbors resentment. And thinking that this person is going to hurt me in the future harbors resentment. Okay. Then the Sutta explains the fourth ground for resentment is thinking he acted for the harm of one pleasing and agreeable to me. So thinking that this person hurt my loved one. So suppose someone hurt your mother or father, or someone hurt your spouse or your children. So thinking this person hurt my family, this person hurt the one I love, it harbors resentment within you. Okay. And then this is what explains thinking this person is acting for the harm of one pleasing and agreeable to me. So at the moment, at the present time, he's acting for the harm of my loved ones, thinking that you harbor resentfulness. And then the fifth is thinking that this person will harm the ones I love in the future. You harbor resentfulness within you. Okay, so all of these resentful feelings arise because of thinking like this. So far we talked about 6 grounds, okay? And the 7th ground to which resentment is harbored is thinking he acted for the benefit of one displeasing and disagreeable to me. So thinking, so suppose you have an enemy that someone you don't like, okay? So there is someone who always helps that enemy of you. So then what happens is that person who helps your enemy harbors resentfulness within you. So and that person who helps also becomes an enemy to you. Okay, so these are the cause, these are the grounds for which why a person gets resentful. Then thinking that in the present, this person is helping someone who I don't like. In simple terms, that's what it means. This person is helping someone who I don't like, who's disagreeable to me, who's displeasing to me. And so that arises, that makes us feel resentful towards that person who's helping. So see how resentfulness arises even indirectly, right? That person has not done anything to harm us. But the fact that that person is associating with a person that we don't like harbors resentfulness towards that person as well. And then now you can guess the last one, that is thinking that this person will help those who I don't like in the future harbors resentfulness within you. Okay, so thinking that this person helped those I don't like harbors resentfulness. Thinking that this person is helping in the present to those who I do not like, and thinking this person is going to help those who I do not like, who's disagreeable to me in the future, harbors resentfulness. So the Supreme Buddha explains, because these are the 9 grounds for resentment. Okay, so now think through your life and see, and you will realize that it was one of these grounds that made you angry the last time you got angry. Right? If I asked you, when was the last time that you got angry, and if you remembered it, then you will realize that it was one of these reasons that arose that anger within you. Okay? So, see, in the next sutta, the Supreme Buddha explains how we should think inside the situation. Okay? So, if a person harmed us in the past, if a person is harming us now, or if a person is or if a person is harming us, if we think that a person will harm us in the future, or if we know that a person harmed the ones we loved in the past, or if we know that someone is harming the ones we love in the present, and if we know that someone will harm the ones we love in the future, or if we see that someone we don't love, someone is helping someone who we do not like in the past, in the present, and in the future, how should we think in such a situation? Okay, the Supreme Buddha explains, because so this is the next sutta, because these are the 9 ways of removing resentment. Okay, what 9? Thinking he acted for my harm, but what can be done about it? So this is not a way that we think, right? If the Supreme Buddha explains, if someone harms us, the Supreme Buddha explains, this is the way you think. He harmed me, he hurt me, but what can I do about it? Like if a person is constantly coming after you and is constantly trying to hurt you, now usually the way we think is, how can I hurt him back? Right? How can I harm him back? But the Supreme Buddha explains, that's not the way to think. If you think like that, then that anger, that resentment is just going to get higher and higher, and it's not going to end. But rather, if you think he harmed me in the past, he acted for my harm, he damaged my life, he hurt me, he hurt my feelings, but what can I do about it? I can't change it because he's already done that. So if you think that, just remember the experience, if you think like that, you can let go of that anger, you can let go of the resentfulness. And then if somebody is harming you in the present, is trying to hurt you, he may be making bad accusations about you, or maybe dispraising you, or maybe hurting you physically or verbally, or making it difficult for you to live, maybe making it difficult for you to live under the circumstances that you're in. So if a person is trying to harm you at the moment, the Supreme Court explains the way to think is he is acting for my harm, but what can be done about it? Okay, so these are the words of a Buddha. So to think he is harming, but what can be done about it? Right? I can't, you can't control another person, right? And the Supreme Buddha explains, thinking he will act for my harm in the future, but what can be done about it? Right? In the future, I can't control what he will do, right? So in order to think like that, you need something. You need a very good quality within you. Can someone tell me what that quality is?
Maybe patience.
Good. Patience. If you don't have patience within you, you cannot think like this. And someone else said metta. The first thing you need to have is patience. If you don't have patience, that's like the guard. Okay, because metta, loving kindness, goes in sync with patience. Okay, first you need to be patient, and then you can develop metta. Understand? So without patience, you cannot develop metta. They're like two friends. They're always together. So unless you have you're patient, unless you endure and you forbear, you cannot think like this. Because we're beings who have traveled a long time in this journey of birth and death. And therefore, what we are used to is thinking in the wrong way. That is called ayoniso manasikara. We are used to thinking in the wrong way. But in order to be patient, you need to think in the right way and forbear. So when you face a situation where someone is harming you, where someone harmed you, because in society there are some people who keep a grudge for a long time. Sometimes it could be a mother or father or a friend who hurt them when they were very young, but they keep that grudge with them for their entire life, thinking, oh, she harmed me. Right? So people cannot get rid of these feelings because they are not used to being patient. They're not used to letting go of these feelings by thinking in the right way. So in order to let go, people in this world will hurt us. We can't control that. But what we can control is the way we think. Okay? So if a person has patience within, then that person patience, we will learn what patience mean in a very short time. So unless you have patience within you, you won't be able to control that angry thought from arising within your mind. Okay, so this patience is a quality that a person develops within. So this is found in people in different degrees. There are some people who are naturally patient. Okay, sometimes they don't even know the Dhamma, but for a long time in samsara, they have practiced this quality of patience, and therefore they are patient. But in today's society, patience is just something that you can very rarely find in people. People have no patience. People can't wait in line. They don't have patience for that even. So how can you have patience when you're being harmed by another person? Right? Patience is a quality that we need to develop within our life if we want to develop this Dhamma path. It's an essential requirement, patience. Okay. The Supreme Buddha, as the Bodhisattva, perfected this quality of patience in his previous lives. In thousands of lives, the Supreme Buddha, as the Bodhisattva, developed, practiced this quality of patience, and he perfected patience in order to become the Buddha. Okay, as you know, the Supreme Buddha perfected 10 paramitas, 10 perfections in order to become the Buddha. And one of those perfections was patience. Okay. So in order for you to understand what patience is and how a Bodhisattva practiced patience, I thought I will share with you a Jataka tale where a Bodhisattva practices patience. And when you listen to this Jataka, you will really be ashamed of yourself. We should be ashamed of ourselves that having gone for refuge in such a great teacher, how little patience we have. Okay, so this Jataka tale, then I'm sure you have heard you actually have heard this Jataka tale. The name of this Jataka tale is Shantivadi Jataka. Okay, so this is a previous life of the Supreme Buddha. Okay, so long time this story was actually taught by our great teacher, Supreme Buddha, in order to help a bhikkhu who had lost his temper. Okay, so there was a bhikkhu who had lost his temper, and the other monks, they brought him to the Supreme Buddha. And at that time, the Supreme Buddha asked, how is it that you, who have been ordained under a teacher who is incapable of any form of breath, continue to exhibit such display of anger? So the Supreme Buddha is asking, how can you, someone who has ordained under me, under a teacher who never have any form of resentment within, can display anger like this? And the Supreme Buddha said, long ago, even after suffering 1,000 blows and even mutilation for the body, the wise showed no anger towards another. And at that moment, the Supreme Buddha told this past story, this Jataka story of the Supreme Buddha. So long time ago, there was a king named Kalabu who was ruling in Varanasi. Okay, and during the time, the Bodhisattva was born into a very wealthy family, and with time, his parents passed away, and he became the heir to all the wealth. So what he did is he realized, even as a Bodhisattva, he realized that although we, gain and collect all of this wealth, we are all going to have to die. So he thought, my ancestors, they all collected this wealth and they left all of this wealth here and they went on their own. They died. So I will also have to face the same situation. So what he did is he gave away all the wealth. He gave away all the wealth and he became ascetic. And he went to the Himalayas and he practiced and developed meditation by practicing the 4 Brahma Viharas. Okay, so he practiced Metta, Karuna, Mudita, Upekha, these 4 Brahma Viharas through meditation. Okay, and he became ordained under the name Shantivadi. Okay, so one day during the rainy season, he came into the city because during the rainy season, it's difficult for ascetics to stay in the forest because when you're in the forest, you're only eating fruits and things like potatoes that grow in the ground. So during the rainy season, it's difficult to find such food. So during the rainy season, they come into the city and find a place for them to stay so that they can go begging for food. So this ascetic Shantivadi, he came to Varanasi, and the commander-in-chief of the king saw his very pleasant, serene demeanor and formed a pleasant mind about him and invited him to stay in the royal park so that he can attend to him. Okay, so this ascetic Shantivadi, he accepted the invitation and he went to the royal park and he started to meditate there. Okay, so one day what happened is this King Kalabu, he drank a lot and he was partying with his dancers and musicians and singers, and he wanted to go to his royal park to enjoy further. Okay, so he went there with his dancers, singers, and all the entertainers, and he got very, very drunk. And while laying his head on one of his favorite courtesians or one of his favorite women, he fell asleep. Okay, so he was sleeping on the lap of one of his favorite women, and he fell asleep, and therefore those entertainers and those dancers thought, then what's the point of us entertaining any longer since the king is asleep? So let's go out and walk around the royal park. And they went. And when they were walking around, they saw this ascetic Shantivadi. And when they saw his serene demeanor, they wanted to learn something from this ascetic. So what they did is, these dancers and singers, these ladies, they got together and sat around this ascetic Shantivadi and asked him to teach them something. Okay. So with that invitation, the ascetic Shantivadi began to teach them. Okay, so meanwhile, what happened was the royal favorite shifted her body a little bit, because you can't stay in the same posture for a long time, right? So she shifted her legs a little bit. And what happened was the king quickly woke up. And when he woke up, there were no entertainers around, and he got very angry. Okay. And he asked where everyone had gone, and that woman who was whom he was sitting, that woman who was there, she said that all the entertainers have gone and they're listening to something from an ascetic. So when the king realized that the entertainers have left him, he got very, very angry, and the king grabbed his sword angrily and rushed off, saying, "I'll give this false ascetic a lesson." So he felt angry towards the ascetic. So now tell me, what's the ground? Now we learned about the grounds for resentfulness, right? So what's the ground in which this king got angry? And this is the time to apply what you have learned. So what's the ground? We learned about 9 grounds for resentfulness, right? So what's the ground to which this king got angry? Thinking what? Yes, he thought this ascetic is harming me. He is taking away my entertainers who's supposed to be with me. So he has interfered with my life. He is harming me. He is hurting me. So he got angry. Okay. So thinking that, angrily, he ran towards the ascetic, and when the women there saw the way the king was running, they realized the king had gotten angry, and they quickly ran towards the king and quickly took the sword from him because they were afraid the king would come and simply kill the ascetic. Okay. And then the king went towards the ascetic. Now he's still angry, right? He went towards the ascetic and he asked, "Hey, ascetic, what doctrine do you preach?" So he asked, "What's the theory? What do you preach? What do you teach?" Okay. And at that time, ascetic Shantivada, he replied, the Bodhisattva replied, "I teach the doctrine of patience, Your Majesty." So he said, "I teach the teaching of patience, being patient." And at that time, the king asked, "What is this patience that you're talking about?" So now he's talking to the ascetic angrily. He's not happy with the ascetic. He asked, "What is this patience that you're talking about?" And the ascetic replied, the Bodhisattva replied, "Patience is not being angry when someone abuses you, strikes you, and vilifies you, so hurts you." So what is patience? Patience, being patient means not being angry when someone abuses you, strikes you, and vilifies you. So so in general, we can say not getting angry when someone hurts you. Right? In general, we can say like that. That's what patience is. So when someone hurts us, if you can maintain a mind without getting angry, if you can forbear, if you can endure the situation without letting anger arise in your mind, that is what patience is. Okay? Now, sometimes when someone harms us, we are able to control ourselves by not saying anything. But in our mind, we are blaming them, right? From the outside, it may seem that you look like you're patient, but inside you're blaming that person very, very harshly. So that is not patience. Patience means when someone hurts you, not letting, enduring that. So he may be blaming you, he may be accusing you, he may be saying hurtful words to you, he may be shoving you, pushing you, beating you. Okay. In such a situation, not letting angry thought arise in your mind. This is a very difficult thing to do, but this is something that is possible to do. Okay. So he taught the king what patience was. Okay, and the king said, "Okay, very well. If that is patience, let me test you. Let me test you whether you are actually practicing what you preach." Okay. And what he did is he called his executioner. And once he came, he asked the executioner to, he asked him to throw him on the ground. So he asked his executioner to throw this ascetic on the ground and give him 2,000 lashes, front, back, and both sides. So now, did he do anything wrong? No, he didn't do anything wrong, right? He did absolutely nothing to hurt the king. But now he's been punished for something that he never even got involved in, right? So he asked the executioner to give him 2,000 lashes front, back, and both sides. So now this ascetic Shantivadi is being hit, is being lashed. Okay. And the executioner shoved the ascetic to the ground and began beating him. And the thorns of the whip cut the skin on all parts of the body, and blood started to come out from thousands of wounds in the body. So now the Bodhisattva is bleeding. His entire body is bleeding because of the whipping. Okay. The ascetic neither resisted nor cried out in pain. So when he's being lashed, he's not resisting, and neither is he crying out in pain. That's what patience is. So for example, when we have a stomach ache, or when we have a pain in one of our limbs, or somewhere in the body, when the pain is very, very high, what happens is we start to moan, right? Cry out in pain, right? That is because we cannot endure that pain. So this ascetic, when he's being lashed, he is not crying out in pain. Usually we would cry out saying, oh, don't hit me, don't hurt me, I didn't do anything, would say thousands of words to show how innocent you are, right? So, but the Bodhisattva is not saying anything. He's enduring patiently, okay? And this cruel king, he went to the ascetic and he asked, what doctrine do you preach now? So he's trying to insult the ascetic, and he asked, what doctrine do you preach now? And the ascetic Shantivadi, he replied, I teach the doctrine of patience, Majesty. And he said, do you imagine that my patience is only skin deep? No, sir. It's fixed deep within my heart, where it cannot be seen by one such as you. So who's saying this? The Bodhisattva. He's saying, did you think that patience is only skin deep? Because he's hurting the skin, right? Did you think that patience is only skin deep? No, it's something that's deep within the heart, where you can't, something you cannot be seen, something that cannot be seen by a person like you. Then the king got even more angry, and he asked the executioner to cut off both hands and feet of the Bodhisattva. Okay, so the executioner went and he cut off the limbs of the Bodhisattva. And then again he went and asked. And when that happened, blood poured from his wrists and ankles like juice flowing out from a jar. So it was a lake of blood. Okay. However, the Bodhisattva, he remained tranquil, showing no sign of emotion. And therefore, the king again asked, hey, what doctrine do you preach now? And again, the Bodhisattva replied, I teach about patience. He said this calmly, and he said to the king, did you suppose, sir, that my patience was in my hands and feet? So the Bodhisattva is asking, did you think that my patience is in my hands and feet? No, sir, it's fixed deep within my heart. Okay. Now, when this was heard by the king, he got even more angry, and he asked the executioner to come, and he said, cut off his nose and ears. So now it was just the Bodhisattva's body that was left, and now he asked him to cut off the nose and the ear. And again, he asked the same question, now what do you preach? And the Bodhisattva replied, I teach about patience. Did you think, sir, that my patience was in my nose and ears? No, sir, it's fixed deep within my heart. And when this was said, the king got even more angry, And he said, "Begone, vile hypocrite," saying that what he did is he kicked strongly, he kicked in the chest of the ascetic, of the bodhisattva, and he left. Okay. And so when the king was hurting him to this extent, the bodhisattva, he remained patient without letting a certain angry thought arise in his mind. So imagine how patient you have to be in order for you to not let any thought of anger rise in you, even in such a dangerous, tragic situation, right? And once the king left, the commander-in-chief, he got to know what happened. He quickly ran to the royal park and he wiped off all the blood of the bodhisattva and he asked for forgiveness, and he said, "Oh, Reverend Sir, if you want to be angry with anyone, please don't be angry with us, only be angry with the king. And because we didn't take any part in this, please spare us." Okay. And at that moment, you won't believe what the bodhisattva said. The bodhisattva said, "Long live the king. Long live the king. Peace to him who has so cruelly injured this body of mine. I teach patience and I practice patience, and I feel no anger towards him for what he has done." These are the words of the Bodhisattva. He said, "Long live the king. I have no anger towards the king who has treated me so cruelly." Now, can you imagine, right? That's why I said, relate this to your life and say, do you get angry for being hurt like this? Right? For us to be angry, just one single word is enough, right? Nobody even have to touch us. Nobody even has to come and give a little bit of a beat to us for us to get angry. A word is enough for us to get angry. Or someone walking away from us is enough for us to get angry, right? But see how much our bodhisattva practiced patience, right? And as the king left the garden, and as he passed out of the ascetic's line of vision, at that very moment, the earth opened up and a mighty flame rising from hell rose up, and the king sank into the earth and was reborn in the Avici hell. So imagine having done such a sinful deed. Of course, he would not be reborn in a good world, right? That sinful act was so harsh that at that very moment he was dragged into hell. Okay. So that same day, the Bodhisattva died because of the injuries, and the Bodhisattva's body was the Bodhisattva's body was respected and revered by the royal palace, by the women and other people in the royal palace. And for many days, it's said that was the topic in the city about how patient Shantivadi was, even against such brutal beatings. Okay. So the Supreme Buddha concluded this, saying that having concluded this story, the Buddha taught the Dhamma, and that hot-tempered bhikkhu attained the second path. So he became a Sakadagami disciple after listening to this Jataka tale. And others attained the fruit of Sotapanna. And the Supreme Buddha explained, at that time, King Kalabu was Devadatta. So the Supreme Buddha's enemy for a long time. And the king of Kasi was Devadatta, and the commander-in-chief was Arahant Sariputta, and Shantivadi, the ascetic, who practiced patience was me. Okay, so you can see through this beautiful Jataka tale that the Bodhisattva was someone who practiced his teaching. So even before becoming the Buddha, the Supreme Buddha practiced these great qualities in his life, right? So when you listen to the Supreme Buddha's Dhamma, it's not just a mere say, it's something the Supreme Buddha practiced in his life. And therefore, that's why this Dhamma is practical. It's not just a saying, it's not just a teaching, it's something that a person can practice in his life and develop oneself. Okay. So we have taken refuge in such a great teacher who practiced patience to such a high level. So if we also form a pleasant mind, and if we at least try to determine within ourselves to practice patience, then at least gradually, little by little, we will be able to practice patience. Okay, those who are patient now because they practiced patience in the past. So if you're someone who does not have any patience, if you quickly get angry for just a word, okay, for just a very simple behavior of someone, okay, that means you have very less patience. So then you need to make an extra effort to be patient. It's not, so being patient means when you're being harmed by someone, when you're being hurt by someone, okay, not letting an angry thought come into your mind. That's what patience is. It's not, you cannot explain it any further. It's something that you have to practice. Okay, so that is why our great teacher Supreme Buddha in the Kakachupama Sutta said, because even if a group of robbers catch you and cut you in half and cut you with a saw that's sharp in both sides, if a person gives rise to a thought of anger, that person is not following my advice. So that is the teaching of the Buddha. If a person gives rise to a thought of anger when you're being cut by a group of robbers with a saw, if you get angry at that time, then that person is not following my advice. So now you can relate that. You can compare that to yourself and see, do we get angry because we are in such a serious situation? No, right? We get angry for the littlest things. So as followers of the Supreme Buddha, patience is something that we must develop within our life, because if we don't have patience, then we cannot battle this defilement of anger. It's having patience that will allow you to develop loving kindness within you. Without patience, you'll quickly pop out. Patience is what that will keep you controlled, and with that control, you can develop loving kindness within you. Okay, so may this beautiful sutta and this beautiful Jataka tale that we learned help all of us to develop this great quality of patience within our lives, and develop our Dhamma path and realize the Four Noble Truths in this Gautama Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.